All right, so welcome to our second Q&A. This is week 1, and we're at the 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is a 2-hour session if we need it, because I know some of you guys, if you're not here and you're listening to the recording, some of you guys wanted the 9 a.m. So an hour later. So it'll be open office hours. So if you guys are listening to this recording and you need to come in an hour later, that's okay. I will be here for 2 hours. And then if you guys who are here right now, you're welcome to stay the full 2 hours. You don't have to. You can just stay and ask your question and leave. Whatever you need. I want to make this as easy as possible for you guys to get what you need out of this group, but then not have to stay here longer than you need to. Because if you have your answer, then just get started and start doing the stuff that you need to do. Because I'm a big believer in just-in-time learning versus just-in-case learning. So instead of just taking all this information in and trying to learn things because you don't want to miss it because you might have FOMO, you'll have these videos for later. And we are trying to have bullet points of what questions are asked. So then you could just skim through, see if someone had asked the question that you wanted, and then get your answers, just so that you're not over-consuming, because it's going to stop you from actually implementing things if you're over consuming. So I just wanted to put that out there for you guys, and then for those who are watching and recording too. So if you have not yet put your question in the event, if you go to the events page, I did just post about an hour ago, a thread that you guys can put your questions in, and I see that Zuni and Courtney already did, and then Martin has a question. So we'll start with you guys who are here, and then I'll jump to Martin's. I'm going to bring you on to ask your question too, if that's okay. If you're able to come on. So Zuni, can we start with you and your question?
So my first question, I had a lot of questions, but my first question was, has my client's why to resonate with their ideal customer's customer?
Oh, so let me make sure I understand. So does your client, their why of why they're doing their business, have to resonate with their ideal client's why? Mm-hmm. Not necessarily, but the why of your client, it doesn't have to connect directly to the customer's why, but it should connect directly to fulfilling the customer want, their goal, or their problem. So do you remember that goal, problem, risk, solution, that whole page? Their solution is connected to the why. That should actually be their why of why they even exist, should be in direct relation to something that serves the customer. But it doesn't necessarily mean it has to connect on that deepest level of the why of the customer and the why of your client. It's just that your client's why should provide some kind of solution to their customers' needs or wants, if they want to get to a goal, or if they want to fulfill a problem. Does that help?
Yes, for example, we had to figure out my why, and my partner and me and I, we did a story with where I found my passion by accident. And I have an ideal customer, and she had found her passion also per accident. So it was like we can relate to each other, right?
Yeah, if that happened, I'd say go with it. I think that's one of those like happy accidents that, it worked out. So yeah, if you can really, I think that's similar to my story with you guys too, is that my why and how I do things, my story, it really relates to you guys, because really it's as if I'm teaching myself 2 years ago. So there is that kind of connection. So I think that's a really good example that you brought up, and I think it works. So, so far, it sounds like it's working for you. Can you hold on I want to make sure everyone who has a question gets in. So I know you have more questions, Zuni, but can we hold on those until we get through a few more, and then I'll come back to you. Courtney, can I bring you on to ask one of your questions?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I have a question from Lauren, but I'll save that for the next round, I guess. So Yeah, my question is, like, I've had a hard time when I first heard about personas and started working with them in core. I thought it was the weirdest thing because I didn't understand how you could take like this very specific idea of someone's life and like change your business from that information because it was so specific. And so I find my clients will ask the same. My clients, my two test friends, they like have trouble wrapping their head around it too. They don't understand like why this Brian they've made up and his breakfast and his like the way he schedules his day and what he does in life, how that affects their whole business. And I'm just wondering, like, if the answer to that is like attracts like, if that's really as simple as it is, and you go after the most ideal client and then focus on like the other clients they want to focus on, like if there are multiple sectors, you focus on that secondary. Mm-hmm. Is that how you would explain it? Like we focus on Brian, who we've essentially made up, because we'll attract more Brians.
Yes, that is how I approach it. Courtney, it was you that I sent the extra video to?
Yes.
Bonnie. So was there anything in there? What did you take from that? And then everyone, I will make note to send it or to post in the group.
Yeah, I thought that was so good because I had asked Melinda how I identified my ideal client because I wasn't sure even what my ideal client was. And what I got from the video was essentially our ideal client is an enhanced version of who we are. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you connect with your client now on all these different levels because you're basically going after someone who's a lot like you, but maybe a step up from that. So you naturally connect with them. That's sort of what I got, which actually helped me a lot because I noticed when I was doing her exercise, building this Pinterest board of your ideal client, what that looks like visually, where they eat, what they dress like, all the stuff. I was really like, I loved all the stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was like, wait a second. I think I see what's happening here. It's just like you go after the client that you can relate to the most is what I got from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we want to be like.
Right. So yes. And that there's going to be some businesses where that doesn't work. I think it goes back to the tech company one too. When you're working with really large companies and the founder is disconnected from their original why, and they're in it for the money. They're in it to just solve a problem and get on with their life. Then I think that's where that approach won't work. But when you have a founder or like yourself who is very connected with what they're doing and they're mission driven and it's more close to the heart, then that is a perfect way to go about it. So yes, like attracts like, you know how to talk to them and it's an enhanced version of yourself. I just wanted to put that out there in case you try this with a bigger business and you're like, why is this not working? That's where it might not work, but I think it's going to work perfectly for you guys in this situation for each other. How I approach it is what you had said, approaching it with the whole idea of the most ideal customer, who is like the idea of the whole brand's best friend. I like how you said, the most ideal customer. Who is that? Then, like you had said, later on, when you want to go into how are we going to market to these people, then you get really, really specific and actually be specific on maybe the different markets that you're going for. Would that help you when you're going to do the personas?
Yeah, no, it does. I think just understanding why that main focus works so well and then building from there. And even like the last Q&A, you kind of touched on that where like in the deliverables, you might recognize that you can focus on the other customers there more specifically, or the marketing funnels and those sort of things. So yeah, no, that does help.
Okay. Yeah. But I do my personas though too, like for my own business, I do them like what you're saying, like attracts like, because especially when you guys are writing for your own business, or if you're hiring copywriters or you're putting out social media content, I've tried to do the whole trying to attract someone I had no idea who they were, and it does not work. But the second I put myself into it and I started talking to people as if I was talking to my friend that was very interested in what I had to say, then things started clicking and I started actually connecting with people. So it helps to put yourself, it's like you're talking to yourself, but it works.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super weird. And I know people always say, you're not your ideal client. And I'm like, well, who says you can't be your
Well,
ideal?
it makes sense because you're more genuine because you're actually
Yeah.
interested in all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll be different than everybody else because you're not just trying to fit in this mold of, because I get really tired of all those posts of like, how do you get more clients? How do you get more customers? And it just sounds like an ad. And I don't hear anything personal. And so if you guys can find out who you are and show that through your branding and help your clients do the same thing, that's what's going to differentiate everyone, which is great. Yeah. Good questions. We have one. Let me jump to the one from Martin and then I'll open it up and then we'll go back to, I know Courtney, you had two, and one from Lauren, and then Zuni will jump back to you too. Martin's asking, how to elevate the strategy session once it's completed, how to collect the data on the benefits for the client or his ROI. I wish Martin was here to ask this. The strategy session. So when you're in this, I don't know if I'm going to answer this correctly because Martin's not here to clarify, but I'm going to try it. How to elevate the strategy session once it's completed. We will be going over the roadmap next week. I don't know if that's exactly what he's asking. What I would do though, just as a note, so the strategy session, there should be an emotional high for the client. We aim for one, to help them feel understood, and then after, to be very, very excited about what just happened. Either you were throwing out some insights, you connected some dots for them, they felt like they were able to describe their story better, or you help them solidify it a little more. Something happened in the strategy session that they're already on this emotional high. So that hopefully you don't need to help elevate it any more than that. I do send a recap after of just a few things. If I said I was going to send the worksheet document, some of them wanted that because there were extra notes on there that I had taken, and they said, oh, can you just send it to me after? So sometimes I do. So I always send a recap message because I want to have them be aware of what the next steps are, whether that is scheduling the next check-in, whether that is just recapping the meeting. Usually it's always, hey, this is what you can expect coming up. This is when I'll be in contact with you. This is what I need from you. Thank you, whatever you need to say, but always send a recap after every meeting that you have. Oh, sorry about that. Every meeting that you have, every session, that would be good. And then the other thing is how to collect data on the benefits for the client or his ROI. I probably need Martin to clarify that more when he's on here because I don't know exactly what he means. Unless anyone is his partner that's here that knows what he's talking about. We don't. Okay. Martin, I apologize. Come on another Q&A and we can talk about it. Nick, what did you say? You said something in the chat.
Oh, I was just talking about Brian still. My mind's still up, Brian.
Got it. Okay.
Hi, Courtney.
Awesome.
I was, no, mind me then.
Okay. Do you want me to add anything? Go for it.
Okay. Well, because no, I mean, I was just saying that because obviously there is a danger to think that the ideal customer is just like us. So there is that, but it doesn't really matter because when you dig down into the minutiae of this person, even if they're thoroughly imagined, you're getting to know them as well as you know yourself. And even if you do know this person and it feels like you are talking to yourself, there's going to be some sort of behavioral difference or something in their life and their daily life that you're just like, wait a minute, we can fucking talk to them through this weird channel and identify with this experience they have and bring them delight and unpredictable experience in that way. That sets you apart and makes the brand interaction special. Fair?
Yeah. It's a relationship, really.
Yeah.
It's a relationship. And so the persona is just there to get you started in that relationship. it kind of reminds me of like people putting their dating profiles online. It's just like that. I know it sounds weird, but it is like, it's the same idea with a brand and their customer. So we put up this profile, we have a picture in our head of who we're hoping to attract. And then you have the initial spark or the initial attraction, and then you start developing this relationship to see if you guys are actually compatible. It's the same thing that happens with a brand and their customer. So if we think of it like that, you don't really have to know everything about the person right away, because you're going to be, and so is your client is going to be learning about them. Like Nick said, you might find something special. So we're just putting out a hypothesis of, hey, this is what we think will work, but knowing that everything's probably going to change later. It's just a starting point. It's just the beginning of filling out your dating profile. And then as you realize, ooh, I learned something new about myself, I should change that. Or this is what I'm really looking for, that you start changing it as you interact with the clients, as your clients interact with their customers. So glad you brought that up, Nick. We can go back to, we can go to Lena. I just saw your question. How to convince the client to dive deep into the exercises of the ideal client, especially the psychology and mindset. Do you have anything you want to add to that? Do you want to come on? No, that's good enough. So how to convince the client to dive deep into the exercises. Have you had issues with that before, with them not wanting to dive deep? I don't know if you're able to come on. You don't have to if you're not able to.
Okay, hello everyone. I can talk. I don't have any specific situation where can I comment, but I have clients where I discuss on their brand strategy because they have issues with the current one. And when I ask about ideal client, they usually come, oh, what? And if I try to ask questions about demographics, then it's okay. They understand, they can answer them. But psychography and mindset, they don't see the relation, how the deliverables can be attached to that kind of questions and information.
Yeah. So they're having a hard time with they don't know why it matters.
Yes, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I think there is two types of clients: the ones that need strategy and understand that, and there is the other ones where they need the deliverables, like a new logo and something, but they don't understand that it is better to get them with strategy.
Right. Yeah, that's so I'm going to address those in two different answers, because they're two different things. Yeah. So the first one, them not understanding why you need to dive into the psychology and mindset, and how is it connected to deliverables, if they're confused about that if we don't know the psychology, we don't know the mindset of these people, we won't know how to talk to them. We won't know what attracts them. We won't know. So it goes into messaging. It goes into lifestyle. Because I find new ways of explaining things every single time I jump into a workshop, because I'm trying to help them understand, and I'm trying to communicate why this is a good idea and why we should be doing it. And so as you do this, you're going to start learning how to do that too. But one of the ways that has helped me is I say, think of this person's lifestyle. Think of your lifestyle. You only buy certain things. Some of us designers only buy Macs for a reason. So we will not be caught dead with a PC. Not all of us, but some. You have that picture of the type of person that only buys Macs. How I describe it to my client is, there's only certain things that you want in your life. You drive certain cars, you dress a certain way, you read certain things. So what we want to do is we want to understand this person as a whole, so that we can insert our business or our brand into their life and it makes sense and it feels right. So if we don't know who they are, we don't know how they think, we don't know what they read, we don't know what they watch on TV, then how are we going to get in front of them in a way that will attract them and for them to want to dive deeper, want to purchase more and all that? I have found that the businesses that I work with, that are better, as in they run their businesses better, they know how to run businesses, they know what works, they're successful, they get it. So the ones that you really have to educate are most likely lower end clients, that they have a lower budget, they don't understand because they have not had success in business, so they don't get it. So I would also then caution you guys, how much do you want to have to explain? Maybe you explain a lot on your website. Maybe you educate a lot on your blogs. I don't know. But I would just say that if you're having a lot of those issues, it might be because we need to help reposition you to attract people who actually know how to run businesses, because they get it. The ones who know how to run a business and successfully, they know that they have to understand who they're targeting to be able to talk to them. So, and the people who only are wanting the logo, only wanting the website because they're like, I don't know why I want it, I'm just told I'm supposed to get it. Do you really want to work with them? Sometimes we have to, because we have to pay the bills. I get it. So I don't want to say just turn them away, but just be aware that the higher end clients that you get that know how to do business, you're not going to have those issues as much. You might have to explain it a little bit, but they're going to get it. They're like, oh, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. I get why we have to do this. The other thing is with the ideal client, I also talk about it if they have issues with, I guess this is a different question, so I don't want to address that. I realized it was a different thing. What was the second question? Because I realized there was a second part to that I said I was going to address. Do you remember?
I said that there is clients that understand that needs strategy and the ones that don't understand strategy, but I think you just covered that.
Okay. Maybe that was it then.
Yeah, that was it. And you covered about the psychography and mindset. So that's okay for me.
Okay, great. And once you have a couple case studies from strategy sessions, mm-hmm. you'll be able to show examples of, hey, this is what actually came out of a strategy session. And typically clients, and if it's really good, clients are like, oh, I get why we have to do all this to get that. A lot of my clients at the beginning, when I was showing more case studies and I was walking through people through what I had previously done, what caught them the most was, in my case, it was the messaging. They're like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And they saw how unique the messaging was, and it was talking to a very specific type of person. So they were able to understand that by just looking at a case study. So that's another thing, is you start getting more examples of what you do. You can just say, hey, this is what came out of strategy. This is how we're connecting the brand to the ideal customer. And like, don't you want to work with people you want to work with that want to pay the prices that you are charging, and you don't have to discount your prices to get them? They're like, well, yes, of course. So like, this is how we get there.
Yes. Thank you, Melinda.
You're welcome.
Really valuable information.
You're welcome. Nick, I see you have your hand raised. You guys can use the raise hand option too. Thanks for doing that.
I was just going to say that anytime that I get but do I really need this stuff? I just want my logo or whatever. Almost invariably, this person or these people have wasted investments at some point. They've just spent $5,000 on a website 6 months ago, and they haven't increased sales. Something or that, you know what the most likely one is? They spent money on Google ads or Facebook ads, and it hasn't done anything, and now they think all marketing is bullshit.
That's a really good point. Because if you can tap into the whole idea of you're not allocating your funds where you should, because that was one of the main things that comes out of strategy, is helping them see where do I have the most chance of getting an ROI. That is a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Would you like the best chance that I can help you get to not waste any more money? Oh, well, yeah. Okay. And then you at very least have their ear. And if they're like really if they're like quite cynical and closed off to imagining stuff like an ideal client and stuff, I often turn it back on them and say, well, you must have some products or brands or businesses that you admire or like. Tell me about you and your relationship with a brand. And somewhere along the line, even if they're totally cynical about it, there'll be at least one product or brand that they have a strong relationship with. And then you could just, You can just dig into that. And if you turn like interrogation into conversation, if things are feeling a little like, can you tell me this word? Can you describe this? And if things are getting a bit cold, I think turning it into a conversation as much as possible and just being inquisitive, but getting them to flow is the most helpful thing. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a fantastic example. I know that in some of the videos, if you guys have watched a lot of the videos with me and Chris, one of the things that he would do was, because a lot of his clients were into cars. And I don't know if you guys remember that episode, but he's like, well, what type of car do you drive, Mr. Client? And so that's another thing too, is tapping into, he was even, which was really awkward. He's like, see, I'm looking at everything that you're wearing and how you're dressed and how you carry yourself. And I'm like, don't do that. That's really awkward. But what he was trying to do is trying to find an entry point. Like if someone's wearing an Apple Watch, or if they do drive a certain kind of car, if they do have a certain handbag, why did they choose that specific thing? I mean, we all have some kind of a filtering system of why we choose what we choose. And so if you can get your client to, if you can ask the question in a way to get them to think of it, then that's better than, you just telling them. That's very good. Nick, that was awesome. Thank you for that. You're like, I'm just being me. Thank you.
I worry about interrupting too much, that.
No, I know, you're great. The raising of the hand helps too. I see Lena has another question. Let's go back. That's perfect. Let's go back to the beginning. I want to address, we'll go Zuni, Courtney, and then we'll go back to Lena. Zuni, we can bring you back on for your other question.
Okay, thank you. My other question was, how many goals are too many goals?
Ooh, that's a good one.
For example, for the second side in the strategy document, you can see here are our goals, and yes, you can list 2, you can list 1, but you can also list 20.
Yeah, that's such a great question. So what I have been doing, and I don't know if I touched upon it just slightly in the lesson, but first, if I possibly can, I want to know their ultimate vision. So I want to get a picture of where they headed, and then each of the goals should ideally line up with that vision. Now we did talk about, there's another thing we talked about, is asking people in the meeting what their goals are for the session. That's different. So we have 2 different things. We have, one is the main goals of the business. What's the founder's vision? Then asking them goals in relation to that vision. So knowing that this is where you want to end up. Let's say you want a franchise and you want to sell this business in 10 years. What do we need to do goal-wise to get you to that vision? Because you want to make sure there's not just random goals all around. You want to make sure that the goals are actually getting them where they want to go. It's kind of like if I'm traveling to New York, my goal is I want to be in New York as quick and as fast as possible. Then someone's not going to plot a road trip for me all over the US. They're going to buy me a plane ticket. But if I say, I want to go to New York, but I actually want to spend a lot of time exploring the United States in the meantime, then the goals to get there are going to be different. So you want to know the end destination. You want to know the vision of where they're headed. That's for the main goals. And you can have a lot of goals in there. It's just that you're going to end up having to prioritize, where do we need to put most of our energy? What's going to give us the most ROI? And so I don't have an answer as far as how many is too many. I think that's going to be something that you're going to figure out as you do this. And you might end up having too many goals and be like, ooh, we should have cut some of those out. You'll learn that as you go, because I don't think there is an answer. I think that every business is different because they have different amounts of funds and resources and employees. Like sometimes they can actually implement and get to goals more than another, like a solopreneur can. So I would say you judge it depending on what you're working with. The other thing is the goals for the session. That's a completely different thing. That's just to make sure everybody in the room feels heard and understood, and that they're hopefully going to get a small goal out of the session. Like if they needed to know budgets, or if they need to know how to tell the story or anything. that they get what they needed for the day. So I try to think in terms of goals with everything. So if you can start training your mind to think like, why are we here in this Q&A right now? It's to help you answer your questions that you had from watching the lesson. The other thing is I always think of goals with every meeting I sit in on, I try to start the meeting with, what do we want to get out of today? What's the main goal of this meeting right now? And then you can break down bigger things into smaller goals. So start training your mind to think in goals, and you'll naturally know, how many is too many and all that when you're just in that mindset all the time. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And would you recommend to implement the goals from the beginning into the end, to have them in the awareness part, in the efficiency part, and in the revenue part?
I think that's a fantastic idea. I had a friend too that had told me that she always reiterates before they do the priorities. She asks them again, what's the main goal that we're trying to hit? So everybody's mind is focused on that. And then all of the priorities then will hopefully line up with, or you could say, hey, does this really line up with that goal that we just said? I think that's a great idea. And I'm glad you brought that up. I think that would be great to identify that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nick, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, you have been bringing in a lot of value, so I don't want to stop you. So please.
Put your hands up for other people, please. Because you just said the word there at the end. Because the answer to your question for me is prioritization, smart priorities, through comparison. What's the most important? What's the most urgent? And then you'll know very quickly if you've prioritized when it's too much, and you can take them out easily, because you can say, well, actually this one is 3 or 4 weeks away, whereas this one is tomorrow or whatever. So I would say prioritization is key. And by the way, just so you know, because it can be hard to like get people to put a number out of 10 on the priority thing, there's this really cool exercise from AJ and Smart, which is I think it's probably from elsewhere, but it's an effort impact scale. So
let me show you that. I actually do it for myself. Yes. Let me show you that. That's why I realized too, later on, I was thinking, I put doability, and one of you guys said, oh, difficulty makes more sense with how you rate it. And then I thought later, I'm like, oh yeah, because then it, So
I've changed mine to effort impact. And as well. But yeah, if you do it on a sliding scale, then people can compare them easier than putting an arbitrary number on it as well. If they're struggling.
Let me share my screen just really quick, because that is something that I have been doing for myself to prioritize my own life. I'm glad you brought that up, because let me just show you this really quick. It's really messy, but it starts off easy, difficult, low impact, high impact. And I do this in Keynote. And so if I feel overwhelmed, just as only for my own business, then I start ranking things and putting them on this. So this is another way that you guys can do the priorities list, because anything here, you do it now because it's easy, but it's high impact. Anything here, you plan it out because it is going to be a high impact, but it's going to be very difficult. Anything low impact and difficult, just throw it out. And then anything that's easy and low impact is busy work. Hopefully you can delegate that out, or your clients can. So this is another, I know I gave you a couple different ways of doing priorities. This is another way of doing it, which you can do this with Post-it notes on a board, or if you're with your client, this is a really good way. So you guys can just list out all of those things from the client journey, the touch points, or anything that you guys had brought up that you wanted to work on, and anything else on the priorities list, and then make Post-it notes, and then do a little lightning decision round, and there you go. So thank you, Nick. Man, just bringing it in. Thank you. Let's go back to the next one. Was Courtney. We can go on Lauren's question if you want to ask it.
Sure. Yeah, Lauren was asking at the beginning of the session, when you ask permission to run it, what do you do when the CEO starts to take over during the session? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, this is a learning experience because it depends on how they're taking over. If they're a very pushy person, and in any event, I always embrace and validate. Always. So then I pivot. So I do the embrace and pivot. I do the Chris Doak embrace and pivot where I go, that is, let's say they bring up something that is so not related. And you're like, oh my gosh, we can't go on this tangent. Then embrace what they said. Oh, that is such a wonderful comment. I'm glad you brought that up. Let me make note of that right now. And if we have time later, we will address it. So then you're pivoting. So embrace and validate. Yes, that is such a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Write it down or have your assistant write it down. Like, let's make note of that. Well, you may be able to circle back to it later and embrace it. So I really try to do that, and as much as possible, just embrace and pivot. And it might take some practice because it depends on why they're talking so much or why they're interjecting. And hopefully you can kind of see, or you can start reading, are they feeling insecure? Are they feeling hesitant? So that's having high emotional intelligence for you guys to start learning. That is, why do you think they're being this way? So that you can learn how to properly respond. Because if they're talking way too much, sometimes that is a sign of insecurity. If they are shutting down other people too, really a lot of it is insecurity, because someone who's very grounded doesn't feel the need to do that. The other thing I noticed a lot with CEOs is they have shiny object syndrome like crazy. Yeah. So they're just going left and right, new idea. And that's easier to handle because you're just like, hey, great idea, I'll write it down. But to focus, we do need to address this, and this. So I constantly will embrace, pivot, and just keep doing that. And typically they don't mind, and they realize that they're all over the place, and they appreciate being reeled in because it is like a herd of cats. So
okay.
Yeah, we're a band of horses, whatever. It's crazy because it's like children. You're like, oh my gosh, all your ideas. Yeah. Nick, would you like to?
Shock. Because the other thing I was going to add was to predict that's likely to happen and manage expectations before you even begin, so that you, like Melinda said yesterday, A, express permission to like lead, and B, to just kind of maybe just throw in a sentence of like, sometimes some powerful figures in the room can kind of take over and read, so we're going to be careful to black. So if you just kind of set that expectation at the start. And the other thing is, if you have like 8 people and shit's going bad, and there's a couple of powerhouses in the room and it's not working, I would switch to a silent voting system, what's called working together alone, which is a concept from AJ and Smart. Do you know about the lightning decision jam, Melinda, and this idea?
Lately, yeah, I learned it from Chris, but I haven't implemented it.
Okay. So if you want, Melinda, I'll send you the stuff, and if you want, you can drop it in the group. But it's called the Lightning Decision Jam. If you want to Google it, by AJ and Smart, and it'll teach you this way to have people. Nice, your man sees it. It'll give you the opportunity to get the whole room working equally and reducing any amount of conflict while being super productive at the same time.
Yeah, I need to get more into AJ and Smart's content and the design sprints too. The book Sprint by Jake Knapp. I've heard wonderful things about that, and I think there probably is a lot of facilitation things that could be implemented into the strategy workshop that are done, in those design sprints. So
definitely, yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I just haven't researched enough to do that. And once I get comfortable with, because I have refined this system for myself over the past 2.5 years. So now that it's gotten to a point where I am getting results, and my clients are getting results, it's one of those things I'm like, ooh, if I'm going to change anything, it's going to be because it makes sense, which that does. Because if you do run into hard personalities, then having something where it's an equalizer will really help in the room. But I just haven't had that issue. I think if I have that issue more, it will drive me more to want to change to that. Thank you for sharing that. But yeah, I can, if you want to grab some of the links and I can put them in. Thank you.
I will do that.
Awesome. We can go down to Lena. Did you have another one that you just put up?
Yes, I've written a question, but I will try to ask it now. Um, in your workshop documents, there is a timeline for implementing brand strategy, and it is for 3 months. Everything is understandable, and everything goes like through those 4 or 3 milestones. And what's next? What is your collaboration with the client after that 3 months? Are you like having a meeting to see if brand strategy is working? Do you need to change something to work it better? Just want to know your background on this topic.
Yeah. So after we finished, we have the roadmap and they're implementing it.
Yes.
So what's the plan afterwards? Yeah. Typically I could refine this better than I do right now. Right now, I check in with my clients typically around the 3-month mark, depending on what the goals are. So I do it by case basis. I will just check in with them, see how they're doing, and then offer them just an hour of consulting for $250. So that's what I charge for consulting. A lot of them do take me up on that. So they're usually refining things. It's not a huge deal. Usually it's how do we implement this? We found out this thing wasn't working. What do you think we should do? I know that Fabian Geihalter will sell 10 hours at a time. So you actually can't buy, if you're a client, 1 hour with him. You have to buy the pack of 10 hours as like a check-in, and you can use it anytime, but they pay ahead, I guess. And then he'll randomly check in with them and be like, how are things going? Do you want to schedule that hour right now? Because they already had paid for it. So that is one way of doing it. I just tend to check in with them, see how things are going, and then give them a chance to schedule a meeting with me. And typically, I've had clients where they have scheduled a meeting a month with me. And it all depends on what their plan looks like. So one of them was trying to get products out and decide what, like, promotional products. So they needed my help in deciding like what should we go with and what makes sense based on what our strategy was. Other clients have pivoted a bit, and so they were hiring me for that. So I just offer an hour of consulting. I give them a Calendly link. I have the upgraded version where they can just pay through Calendly. It's really easy. They know how much it is and they were aware of it beforehand. So I tell them ahead of time, like, when we have check-ins, if you need anything, consulting is $250 an hour. So they're not just like, oh my gosh, what's this? That's been the easiest for me. But you can have it more structured. You could have another price and say, no, we're going to check in and it's going to be this amount, or you can structure that. And it's just easy for me to go like, here, sign up for this and pay me money.
Okay, I just wanted to understand if it is like all the meetings after those 3 months are included in the brand strategy price, but it's like extra. So
it's extra. And as long as you help them be aware of that too. So however you do that in your proposal, or however you're making them aware of that it ends, make sure everyone knows, like, this is where it ends. If you would like extra support, this is what it's going to be. And or you could up the price and say, this is what it includes. And it actually includes 2 check-ins this year, however you want to do it, as long as everybody knows and has the right expectation going into it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We can go back to Zuni's last question. You had 3 questions. Did you want to? How to help people align? Is it that one in the meeting? Yeah. Do you want to ask that one? You're on mute.
Thanks. Okay, yes, I had a question, but I guess it's already answered, because my question was, how would you handle discussions between attendees? How would you help them to align? Because I had the moment in the strategy workshop when 3 people were having discussions about their brand attributes, about the perfect customer. They couldn't get to one way. So I thought myself, okay, maybe I should let them write down her answers on post-its and then align with them and then discuss. Because otherwise, I don't know, it was so much time spending. So I had this idea. I wanted to know, what are your ideas?
Yeah, Nick's shaking his head. Yes. Yeah. Because when you're having issues with people not aligning, then I think going to something where it's equalizing everybody. Nick, come on and tell us, because you have more experience too with the design sprints, and at least knowledge wise, whether or not you actually, hey, at least you know more because you've researched it more than I have. So
you just nailed it there with the idea of getting them to quietly do the diligent work themselves on a post-it. And the only next part of that process is get them to put the solutions up on a board, and then take little sticky dots and give 3 to each person, say, and have them quietly vote in 60 seconds on what they think is the best. And they can put as many dots on one as they like. And then you've got agreement and ideas. You put the one with the most dots at the top. If let's say there's 10 solutions and 3 of them have dots on and 1 has the most dots, that's fine. You just start with the top one. And then if you have time that day, you can look at the other 2. And then it gets rid of all that issue. So yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to the idea of prioritizing and trying to decide. That's why it's what the lightning decision jam, is that what they call it? Yeah, because what you're trying to do is not have all the chaos and the mess. You're trying to get a decision so that you can move forward. So thank you for sharing that. But yeah, Zuni, it sounds like you had solved it. But you gave such a good example too of how I hope you guys can go into a meeting when you find something that happens like that, but you were able to problem solve on the spot. That is what I hope. That is what I really aim to help you guys get to, the point where you're confident enough to do something like that, where you're like, ooh, this is not working. And then decide what would be the best route on the fly and then do that. And Zuni, it sounds like you did it perfectly. So congratulations for that. Good job. Good job.
The other thing, Zuni, is that like you just surfaced what's potentially an even more urgent and important problem than the one you're trying to solve in that moment. Is there an issue here where we don't have agreement of vision and ideas? Do we need to backtrack a bit and solve a bigger problem first? Maybe, you know.
Yes.
Either way, you're digging and pulling out insights that can help them through just by being cool like that. Nice.
Yeah, that right there is such an important thing to remember, what you had said, that if you're finding that things aren't going how you thought, instead of getting pulled into the weeds, like taking the bait, it's almost like getting pulled into an argument. Like, instead of taking the bait, to back up and say, well, what is causing this problem? And backing up, and just like Nick had said, just like we do in sales meetings when someone's like, I need a logo, and you back up to go, what is really the problem that we need to solve? It's the same idea. So if you're coming into that a lot, if you're having those kind of issues, just back up one more time and say, okay, what's causing this issue that's right in front of me? There's something else going on. Nick, I think that was brilliant that you brought that up. And that's something that we need to be aware of as strategists all the time. It's like, what's really the problem going on here? What's really the goal? What's really the problem? Zuni, did you want to jump on?
Yes. Nick, did you have any idea how you could combine different visions into one? Because if you have people with different visions, it's really, really difficult, or I imagine as really, really difficult to get them to one.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, honestly, the right exercise to make sure everyone feels that they have their own space to give their own opinion about what that vision is. So make give half an hour to an hour about finding agreement in vision, right? And make sure everyone knows that that's what we're going to do in this next little portion. And use whatever exercise makes sense. If they're fighting all the time, go to the quiet voting system. If you think you can get the quiet person to speak more, just encourage them out of it. Say, thank you, Bob, for that point. I noticed that you're talking a lot and it's really helpful, but I just want to hear from Sarah now, or whatever. But I would say just the only answer I have is give it the time and space and attention it deserves in a structured way. That's the best answer I can give. Is that fair? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Does that
Yeah,
help?
it does to me. Zuni, does that help you? Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Nick, you're just coming out with the, I'm gonna like hire you to be my co-teacher. You're awesome. But you had brought up another come on. So you had brought up another point though too, is that whatever problem you find, use a structure to help solve whatever that problem is. That is your main job as a strategist. Figure out what problem we're solving or what goal we're trying to get to, and then solve the problem that is stopping us from getting to that goal. So that's what we do. And sometimes we're solving a problem that will then help us be able to move on to actually solve the brand problems that we need to. And that's okay if that's what we have to do. So,
and if there's some major overarching issues between division, like let's say the CFO is like, no, we need to focus on this level of profitability, and the founder is like, no, we need to help these people for free over here. Let's just whatever. I'm sure there's a way to facilitate a negotiation, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be working together. So it's probably just about bringing them out of the headspace they're in the moment and getting them to think calmly and clearly and on a solutions-based mode.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We don't have, that I'm seeing, we don't have any extra questions in there in the Facebook, but we can open it up to any questions that you guys have right now. And I know we have some people off camera. If you guys have any questions and you're not able to talk, you're welcome to put them in the chat and we can cover them. If you haven't yet asked a question and you have a question, please jump on. We have Edwin here. If you have any questions, you're good. You're just listening in.
I have a question. Oh, unless everyone's going to go.
No, just want to say good morning to everybody. LA time, so early. No, just wanted to add. Hey, Nick, what's up? So I just wanted to add on to that. How do you use the structure or control the chaos? Because if you remember, I mentioned I sold my first brand strategy. I bluffed my way through it, and then 12 people show up. So it scared the bejesus out of me. And then towards the middle, like 3 people are in conflict. So what I did was I threw it back at them. I went to the CEO and said right at the front of that, we're having conflict here. Mr. CEO, how do you solve this problem for your group? Because now it's not on me, it's on them, pretty much. So you throw it back at them, kind of. That's my experience. So that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. Courtney, did you have something?
Yeah, I was wondering in this, if we're going to cover, like, I know it goes from strategy session to roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
In the roadmap or after that, is there anywhere that connects the dots between what the plan is now and the strategy going forward to design and how you choose more design elements for the brand specifically?
We'll be going over brand identity.
Okay.
So we won't get into anything else deeper than for just brand identity, but hopefully that will give you enough. What services do you offer your clients?
It is mostly brand identity. So
it is. Okay. Yeah. I noticed that there were a lot of people that were coming in, not everybody, but a lot of people coming in were brand identity designers and wanted to know, how do we translate? Because that was a big thing that was missing from core, was how do you actually translate what you have into brand identity? And so we will be covering that, I believe, in week 4. So after the roadmap.
Okay.
And I'll show you my process and you guys can develop your own, because I actually do it differently than the Stylescape. My Stylescapes are way different than how the feature, it was one of those happy accidents where I tried it and I was like, this doesn't work. And then I just did it my own way, because you know how you just have a way of working. So I'll show you my process, but it'll just go that deep. It won't go into anything else, just because I
think
don't
that's
offer it.
perfect. That's actually
Okay.
the level I was hoping for.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, and I'll give you like style guides too. So I do very limited style guides, but it's just enough to get my client enough to go forward. And the style scapes, I'll show you what I deliver to
Okay.
the client when I do that. Yeah. Yeah.
And right before you said it, I was totally thinking you and Nick should work together.
Yeah, Nick, we'll be talking later.
Yeah.
I know you're starting an agency and all, but do you ever think about teaching?
Perfect duo.
I should play it coy.
We'll talk later. I know that's like Christo getting like I might be working with him on some stuff too. So it's funny, like everybody's working with, you know, it's all good. Well, community over competition, right?
That's very kind of you, Courtney, by the way. Thank you, everyone. I feel really worried about being overbearing, so thanks.
No, you would only be overbearing if you weren't sharing valuable insights, Nick. But but you are. You're good. We're good. You're sharing value. We appreciate that. You guys are free to ask more questions. We have time. I don't know if anyone will be hopping on at 9. I probably should remind them in the group, but pop on and ask your question while I comment in there and let them know they can come on. Nick, you don't have to raise your hand. Just come on.
It was to ask a question, but should I go and ask a question somewhere else and come back? Is that what you're saying?
No, ask your question.
Okay.
Ask it here.
You mentioned Marty Neumeier yesterday, and I can see that you focus on some of Marty's ideas and concepts in terms of establishing differentiation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you go as far as creating the onlyness statement with clients? And here, hands up in the room who knows what that is. If I say the onlyness statement. Okay.
Can you describe it really quick, just for the ones that are off camera, in case they?
Yeah, let's do that, right? So very basically, it's establishing not just a differentiating factor in terms of what makes you somewhat different. It's demanding that you conjure up something that genuinely and uniquely and definitively makes you uniquely different. We are the only X to Y for Z. And it's extremely daunting and seems insignificant, but is like a problematic area of thinking. It's super difficult for oneself or with clients. And I'm just wondering if Melinda uses that.
I can show you what I use. We're going to get into it in the roadmap section, but I can show you. Let me go to it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm asking like completely unrelated questions.
We're going to get there. No, we're going to get there. I use, sorry, I'm opening up my document to find out where it is. Yeah, this is jumping ahead slightly, but this is what I use. And I honestly don't remember who I got this from, because in the Future Pro group, we all share so many things that I don't know who the original person was that I got this from. So I apologize. It might have been Marty.
That is Marty.
Is this Marty's?
That's how you construct the onlyness.
There you go. So this was the only sleep meditation guide, how that connects deeply with people through vulnerability for individuals who want inner peace, happiness, and joy. Why? Who struggle to merely survive. Oh, the customer pain point. Where are they? Their location, and then the trend that is behind it. In a time where meditation is becoming more known and accepted as a viable tool for inner healing and thriving. This is very wordy, but
it is super wordy. You can condense it from that into something that's actually usable.
I think, oh my goodness. I'm seeing if there was another. Yeah, so there's different ways to go about this. As long as I found that the positioning too, as long as we can see definitively what do they do that nobody else does? And also, I found that this positioning statement helps clients to, like, you want to see if it resonates with them. If they're like, yes, that's so us. And so it really helps that. And then I have other things that boils it down even better, but we're going to go over that later. I don't want to get too deep into the roadmap just yet.
Yeah, sorry for derailing. Thanks.
That's
for the
okay.
Quick insight.
Edwin, did you had tips on remote workshops? Was that in the chat? Are you good?
Yes. No. Any tips on conducting remote workshops? Because I'm working with a partner right now who's in Australia, Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Any tips on how to? I know you've done a few, right? Like
Yeah, I've done a lot. Yeah, a lot of remote. I just share my screen and I take notes with them, and it's really not much different than if you were in person. I mean, unless you had multiple people. But yeah, yeah, I don't know if I have any specific tips. Do you have a problem that you're running into? Did you freeze? Oh no, Edwin froze. Well, if you come back, let us know if you had a problem. Zuni, we'll go to Zuni's roadblocks, vision formula. Oh, Edwin, are you back? You froze for a second. Did you have a problem with running it remotely?
Not a whole lot. It's not really a problem. It's just challenges, like location-wise, timing, and all that, and then the lack of tools. I use Calendly for that, and then we used Zoom screen sharing. I was typing, so I could show him that I'm typing out as he was dictating, because I tried to figure out the person that I'm talking to and I'm working with, and he started ranting off. Like, that's how he, So I was like, how do I control this? I go, okay, hold on. Your voice shifted at this point. So let's go back to that. And then he was like, oh my God, that's cool. I like that. So, and that's how you pace it, because he started, because he got so excited. And remotely, I can't, smack him in the head. Doors away. So we'll do that when he gets to LA.
Yes.
So yeah.
Oh no, you're cutting out again.
So
we're losing you. You're going to.
That's why I'm trying to figure out, how do you control a conversation remote, a way of working this brand strategy thing remotely,
Well, I think you did a perfect job of doing that, where you identified where that shift happened and you zeroed in on it. So you found the golden nugget and then you followed that. So it's what you're going to be doing the whole time. It's like I said, like herding cattle, herding horses or cats. Like, you're just constantly shifting the conversation and finding out what should you follow and asking the right questions to get there. So it sounds like you're doing what you should. Nick, did you have something that you wanted to add? Edwin?
Yeah, it sounds like you fucking nailed it there. Yeah. But the other thing I was just thinking there, and I haven't done this, but if you're sharing screen, maybe you could find some sort of digital little time timer, little clock that you can leave on the screen and say, here's a countdowner. We've got 5 minutes to talk about this. This is what we're going to talk about it, and I'd like to keep us focused on this. And if you want to run away with something, I'm just going to quickly pause the timer, and we'll record what you're saying, because I'm sure it's valuable, but we'll bring it back to the thing, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. And like you said, Nick, you had mentioned this before about managing expectations. So telling them, hey, we only have this amount of, oh my gosh. That's awesome.
It's deadly, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're telling them we only have this amount of time, and if we do get off tangent, I will be bringing you back. And then, and I think Grant had a great reaction too. It's like, oh man, see, that's why we need somebody else's eyes and ears, so that we don't just go off in Neverland and never come back. Like, we need someone else to go, hey, but this was a really cool spot. Let's go down that road. And it's like, oh, I would have missed it if I didn't have you here. So it sounds like you did exactly what you needed to. So good job. You guys are already doing so well. I'm impressed. Zuni, did you want to come on and ask about the roadblocks that I see in the chat?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I had a really big problem to find my vision or to find some words for it. And my facilitator has the problem too, or has had the problem too, to ask me something specific, what would give us some more insights about my vision. I don't know. It was just so difficult.
And this was about your vision for your business?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What have you tried asking what your vision is just for your life in general? Like, what do you want to be doing on a daily basis? And because our businesses should feed whatever we want to do in our personal lives, our businesses should be the support to that. Because our businesses aren't the main thing in our life, right? We do our business so that it can give us something personally. So do you have a vision for your own personal life? What do you want to be doing on a day-to-day basis? What do you want your life to look like? Would that be an easier starting point?
Yes, it would. And what do you have something like a checklist how do I know that the vision is really a vision and not just the mission or something else?
I think a vision, and you guys can, if you have ideas too, I'd love to hear from you guys, but I see a vision is like painting a picture of where you would want to see yourself. Like I'll give you some hints into what mine is. So mine changes all the time, but at this very moment, I have this idea that I want to buy a property out in LA because I'm in Orange County. So it takes me a really long time to get out to LA. I want to get it around the Santa Monica area. So if I want to go film out there, I can, and I want to Airbnb it when I'm not there. And I want the decor to be just like very designy, like really into it. So that is what I have, this vision of like, gosh, I want that extra property, and I want my life to look like me collaborating with people on projects, and I'm only working on stuff that I absolutely love, and I'm not doing things just because I'm trying to get money, but I'm doing things that I love. So I'm painting this picture of like, this is what my life is going to look like, and I'm going to go out to LA like a few times a week. And so I'm just painting this dream world of what's my ideal day look like? What do I want to be doing? Who do I want to be talking to? To me, that's more of a vision, because it's like this, it's like a movie. Like I'm writing the script of my movie and I'm getting excited about it. So that's more of a vision. A mission, and I'd have to see, I don't have a proper definition of a mission, but a mission's like, what's the difference that you want to make in the world? So that's different. So I think there's that, like, vision is the painting of the picture of like, what do you want your life to look like versus your actual mission of how do you want to change the world? And thank you for I was looking at the chat. Yeah, so that's my vision. But Zuni, that might help you. And if you guys have read the E-Myth, he talks about that, about having the E-Myth. I need to put it on a book list. Highly recommend that, because he talks about your primary aim and to build a business to feed that primary aim. So whatever your primary aim is for your life, or it could be your vision, your primary aim, build your business in a way that you can do what you want to do. Like I want to build my business in a way where I never have to work for anyone if I don't want to, and I can say no, and I don't ever have to go back to a 9-to-5 job, and then I can work from anywhere and do what I want to do. And so that's another part of my vision too. So those resources, where are the resources there? I'm adding resources as I can to each unit, and I'm working on giving you guys like links and book lists and whatnot. I do have a book list that I can share with you right now, but I want to make one specifically for this course too. I haven't been able to get the resources done ahead of time. I'm kind of doing things while building the train tracks while the train is moving. So that's why. But I just put in the chat, that's my recommended book list. If you guys wanted to start, I can run through and just let you know which ones to start with. The E-Myth, highly recommend that, because it's going to talk about how you build a business that you're not always the hands of doing the stuff. So you're not always the designer. You can hire designers, you can hire strategists, that you're actually running a business, that you're not just a freelancer. So the E-Myth, if you have not read that. The other one that really helped me out in facilitation and just talking to people in general was Never Split the Difference. I talk about that book all the time. It is such a good book. It changed my life. It made me more empathetic, and you need that when you are a strategist. And then there's other branding books and whatnot, but I think getting you in the right mindset, you'll be able to figure out the branding stuff, and that stuff will come later. But I would say learn the soft skills first, which is more of like the business stuff. The E-Myth and then Never Split the Difference are probably the two really good ones. And then 100 Things I Learned in Business School. If you guys don't know much about business, that was a really quick way of getting some quick understanding of what things my clients will be talking about and what things they know. Because you want to come in showing that you know about business. They'll trust you more if you do that. And you'll just get how things work, which is really good. Yeah, so there's that. Nick, you have your hand raised. What's up?
Zuni, when you look to the future and try to envision your vision, do you feel a natural inner confidence and clarity, or a lack thereof?
What do you mean?
Well, if I ask you to say what does the future look like for you? What's going on? Do you have an imagined vision of that?
No.
Does it come easily, or is it difficult to imagine?
It's difficult for me because
And
there are so many ways I could go, and I can't decide for one, so it's difficult for me.
Okay. And so there's a confusion over which option of the many. So is it fair to say that if you had some help with prioritizing your aspirations and ambitions into what makes the most sense for you in terms of importance and urgency and whatnot, would that help you clarify your vision? So is there a conversation that you might have with your facilitator over articulating the options on the horizon and then working out which is the most important to me? Put a number on it or put it on a scale with each other. Which is the most important now? What's the most urgent? What gives me the most joy? What gives me the most profit? And working out practically what makes the most sense for you. So does that help answer a question? Because that's what I might do with someone who struggles to articulate their vision as a facilitator. Maybe there's a confidence issue where you look to the future and you fear the future because you think, oh, I can't accomplish my dreams. Like that would be me for a long time. I just see blackness if you ask me to look at the future because there's nothing there. So I don't know, I've gone off topic, but if you dig down and kind of record your options and then work on a set of metrics to help you decide which is the most important to you. And don't forget that like going for one option doesn't mean sacrificing the rest, right? You can always come back to them. So does that make sense? Is that fair? Does that help?
What a nice tip. Thank you. Thanks a lot. It helped. Thanks.
Thanks.
You're
Nick.
welcome.
We appreciate it. Courtney, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that video by Bonnie Tsang might help you a lot because she's a photographer, right? So she's a really, really successful photographer, but she talks about in that video how her interest in what kind of projects she chooses to go after, a client she goes after, continues to change. And so she's constantly revisiting her own brand and changing the direction she's going. And I thought that was really interesting because she might have a million interests, but she just focuses on one at a time. And I just think that would be a good video for you to watch. It was good for me because I'm like you. It's hard to pick one thing. I
am going to share. Thank you for, I'm getting the link right now. This is another thing that I'll share in, I'm making a note for myself to share in the group too. So that was a call from my, Courtney, thanks for bringing that up. That was a call from my Inner Circle mastermind group that I have. So Bonnie came on and talked to our group about how she develops her ideal client for her own business. And it was very, like Courtney, we had talked about that earlier in this call about how it's someone that is like an ideal version of yourself. And so this might really help you. So if you guys wanted to check that out, if you're having trouble with your own ideal client or helping your client develop an ideal client, that might help. And just your ideal vision of where you want to go and where you see yourself, that might really help.
And do we all ask the 3-year question? Do we all know the 3-year question well at this point?
We don't, because we're going to go over that more in the how to sell. But if it would help us all develop our own vision, then it might.
Because that's the most practical answer that I have for Zuni's question, and you do it too, right? Where if you're trying to help if someone envision their future and what the plan is, you do it by presupposing that you're 3 years ahead in the future and everything's gone really well. So you kind of set them up to think confidently and positively and objectively, and then work backwards from their dream.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat if you guys wanted to check it out. It's, if we were having this discussion 3 years from today, you were looking back over those 3 years, what has to have happened in your life, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy with your progress? So it's getting yourself or others to be in that future state and then look back over what was it that has made them really happy. Some people, it's easier for them to get in that future state than others. Just like all of us too. Sometimes it's easier. Like it's easy for me to dream of things that I want to do and, you know, fun things and ideas, but other people, it is more difficult. So makes sense. Thanks for that, Nick. Did you still have your hand up for anything?
Yeah, I put it back up because would you like to, can I delve further into that? And how that question can change people's lives or bomb? So as an anecdote, right, I was playing pool with a friend of mine and we were having a few drinks and she was talking about her new business and I could see that she was having some self-esteem and confidence issues, etc. And I decided it would be a really nice time to drop in the 3-year question. We were already talking in context. We were already talking about the future, and everything was nicely set up for it. And it went down a treat. And she was like, "This is the best question I've ever been asked." And she just went off for 10 minutes talking about all these amazing things that had supposedly happened in the last few years. And she got so excited that she leant over to my other friend, John. She was like, "Nick, you have to ask him this question. John, check out this question." And I was like, "No, this is terrible." And I knew this was going to happen, where I turned to John and I was like, "Fine," and I explained the question and he was like, "Oh, okay." Because this question needs setup. It needs context, and they need to be in the zone, and you need to immerse them in where you are in 3 years' time. The best way to set it up is to be talking for 5 or 10 minutes beforehand, and then being really cozy and comfy and taking a drink of coffee or whatever, and then to immerse them in this imagined future. So, where's your favorite place on earth? Oh, it's this place, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you and I are sitting there drinking your favorite drink. What's your favorite drink? Blah, blah, blah. And get them to just immerse themselves in the imagined reality of this situation. Otherwise, that question goes down fucking shite. But it can be magical. It can produce amazing magical results as well.
Well, it's fun to practice it on friends where you're not in a business setting, so you can screw up and it doesn't matter, and you're just finding out how to talk to people and ask those questions. And so you learn what things to ask to elicit those ideas and the emotions and all that. So yeah, I think that's a great question. Hope that helps you, Zuni. Yeah, great. You what other questions? You guys are welcome to. It's a free for all now. I don't see any more questions coming up in the Facebook. You guys
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So you talk about these check-ins you do after the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had a check-in go bad where they blame the strategy session or are you always seen as like this support system for them going forward?
That's a really good question. I have never had it go bad, knock on wood, because, and I want to attribute that to the expectation that they had going in. They knew that all they were getting was a plan, the best plan possible. They also knew that they were highly, highly collaborative in that. So they had responsibility in that as well. And that I was just there to facilitate and condense and streamline and focus them, that I was not there promising we're going to get these results, and anything that I couldn't promise, I didn't promise. And so they came in knowing that it was their responsibility, and what my role is with them as a consultant, that it was just to help them focus and help them move forward and condense their ideas and to facilitate. So luckily I haven't, but I would just warn people, because I've heard things go badly, and I've heard things go really badly when the client was under the impression that they were being promised an ROI or they were promised results. And I heard of someone, a strategist, get in some deep trouble because of how they set up expectations at the beginning, that the client was under the impression that, oh, well, we're going to get these results now. So there was a miscommunication or misrepresentation of somewhere. So I always make sure to set that up. If you set it up right, then they just see me as a support now, and they're excited to be on a call with me, because by the time they get through, they have more clarity. And that's the main thing that I help with, is clarity. And of course, I want to get you to your results, but you can't get to the results unless you have clarity. So
that is really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. How do you know your strategy will work? This is from Lena, related to Courtney's question. Yeah, we don't. It's our best. We're giving our best shot at it, which really, it's our client's idea. All we're doing is facilitating, and we're helping to form the plan that's really in their head. And if done right, they know that. They're like, this is my plan. This isn't your plan for my business. This is my plan. You just helped me say it better. So Nick, looks like you're agreeing. Did you have something to add at that?
You actually just said it there, which is that it's not necessarily your strategy, it's the business's strategy. And like, it comes from setting the expectations. The best answer to that, because it's so fucking dangerous when you're setting expectations, is to let them set the expectations and the metrics by just asking questions. Eventually they will, with the right questions, they will say, well, you know what's a good metric? If my customers leave smiling when they walk out the door. And that's a metric you can help with, as opposed to, yeah, you'll get a 20% increase in sales in 6 months. That's fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
But if it's more qualitative,
I want to add too. So I was in the client's position. I bought a $5,000 course with coaching. It lasts a year. And this is to help me launch my own courses, like validating this course, launching it to the public, getting to feed the top of the funnel. So I actually have people coming on my list. So they're helping with all of that. And when I was on the sales call with their sales guy, I had said my goal was really big. And he's like, listen, that is a fantastic goal. I don't feel comfortable with that being the goal. I think we really need to have more of a realistic view. This is what I think it should be. And this is more, especially, he's like, because you're going to have to do a lot. Like, there's a lot that you're going to have to do. So he showed, it was very clear what they're going to help with, but then my responsibility in it too. And I want to bring that up, because when I was solely doing brand identity, I took on way too much responsibility of the success of my client's business based on the work that I did. Then when I got into strategy, I realized, no, they're responsible for their business and I'm responsible for what I offer. But essentially, they're the ones that are implementing. They're the ones that are running their business. And I was finally able to see that, oh, it's not my responsibility and my work that's going to make or break their business, but that it's really their responsibility. And it was really helpful for me to see that shift in thinking that happened going from designer to strategist, because I took on all this unnecessary responsibility. It's really not mine. And the client also, I don't know if they saw me as having that much responsibility as a designer, but they could have. And it's an unhealthy, it's almost like those unhealthy codependent relationships. Like there's an unhealthy balance, but then in brand strategy, because you're just the facilitator, it's much healthier and everyone knows where their expectations are and their responsibility. But it was also helpful for me when I was buying that e-course and coaching to see, oh, that's how they manage my expectations. Like I had this big goal and they're like, this is what we've seen happen with our previous clients and what we feel comfortable with, especially based on your numbers that you had, that this is where we think it's a healthier, it's a more realistic number. And I haven't reached that number yet, and I'm coming close to the end of the year, but I also realize it's because I have not been quick to implement things either. And I'm not blaming them for it, because I'm like, they did what they said they would. They gave me my roadmap. They have my coaching as support and all of that, but I don't blame them for my lack of results in the time that I thought I would get them. It's because I know what I'm responsible for. So, yeah, it's an interesting shift getting into strategy like this. And then Lena, you asked, how are you setting the expectations? So what Nick had said, ask the question, have them say what it is. And then like my coach did with me, you can question, does this really make sense? Do you really believe that you're, with all of your infrastructure, with your business, with how many man hours that you have to put into this and resources and time and energy, do you really feel that you would be able to hit this goal? And they could be like, ooh, okay, maybe not. And so asking the right questions.
Yes, I hear that questions are the answers.
I love that. The questions are the answers.
Yeah, that's
I feel like we should quote you on that. That's really good.
Yes, please, welcome.
Yeah. And then the line that you actually promised, it goes back to, if you guys were in the other night, I had said that I promise a roadmap. I promise a strategy to get you to where you're going. I never promise results, ever. So I always promise, I'm like, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you the best possible strategy given what information you give me. We're going to formulate this roadmap together. That's what I promise I will give you. And I deliver every time because that's all I promise. And then as they get their results, that because really their goals and their results, if they have really bad goals and if they just have a poor vision, they're going to have poor results. And that's why in the sales meeting, and we'll get into that later, but in the sales meeting, if I find a client has a really sad vision, like a really boring, not very big vision, it's like, I don't really want to work with you, because if your goals aren't big, we can't do fun stuff. Like we can't do all that amazing. We can't, delight the customer how we want to if all you're trying to do is make $10,000 a year. It's like, well, no, I want someone who has like these big, massive goals. Like the home developer, that's one of my favorite projects, because his goal was like, I want to be the place that people go to that they want to live. I want one of their homes. That's like one that I should buy from Airbnb. But it's like the place that people want to live in LA, or the Verono homes. Like they want to be known for that. They wanted brand equity, and they're like, I don't know how to get there. I just want to be known as that. And I want to provide that level of excellence to my ideal clients. And so that we were able to just dream up all of these fun things because his goal was so big. And that's where if someone's just, if someone just has a really, really boring vision, then I don't want to work with them. It's not fun. And I would only be able to charge like $100. So go for big goals. You want clients with big goals, not big budgets, because they'll find the budget. If someone really wants to get to a goal, they will find how to get the money. They will do it. And if they don't, they'll do it in like steps, to get them there. But yeah. Zuni, do you want to come on?
Hopefully that's the last question for today. Yes, I had another roadblock because I had trouble to find my dream client because I couldn't decide between product or service-based businesses. So I asked myself if I could combine them in terms of needs instead of niches, or yes, instead of products or service-based. So
this
what
is
do you think?
what I would do. So you're trying to decide whether if your ideal client is in the product or service based business. I recommend watching that video with Bonnie Sang that I put in the chat. So it's more connecting with someone on a personality level, and more of like a lifestyle, who you would connect with, who you would want to hang out with first. So develop that personality first. Then I would say the people you market to, you could have different segments of markets that you can reach out to and to market to. So one could be a product. So you have this person, you have this like persona, the personality that you'd like to work with, that personality wise you would mesh really well with. Then you could try marketing to a product based business, and then you could try marketing to a service based business, and have different landing pages on your website for each of them. You talk to them individually, but the core beliefs, the core lifestyle, the core values will all be the same. It's just that you might talk a little bit differently to each of them. But I would watch the video with Bonnie Sang. I think it'll help with that. Nick, did you want to add something?
Well, Courtney first. Courtney has her hand up first.
Okay.
You know what? I just had another question, so you can go ahead.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think that product-based business, like if you said I do brands for product-based businesses, that's not a niche. It's not hyper-specific enough. So I don't know that deciding between products or services necessarily helps you. Is there a particular reason why you're wondering whether to differentiate between products and services?
Because I was asked to decide.
Oh, in the strategy meeting?
Yes.
With your partner?
That's why I thought about it. How to decide for something. Because if I would niche down, I could say also I'm the brand strategist for beauty salons or anything.
See, now there's a niche,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that's the specificity of that gives it value, whereas there's no specificity to saying I'm solely going to work with service-based businesses. I suggest. I don't know that I'm right.
Yeah.
Is it a niche to say I'm the brand strategist for very brave, risk-driven entrepreneurs? Because that's what you are combining them through characteristics now, and not through niches.
Right. I don't know if I would categorize it as a niche at that point, but I don't think that's a bad thing. That the niche, at least in my vision, is more of a vertical. So an industry specific. Nick, would you agree with that?
I'm still trying to figure out the answer. So I've been pushing off the idea of working within a sector-based niche, i.e., go to me if you're in the beer, in the brew pub industries. It just doesn't appeal to me to sink into that. And I know that if you just do it, it doesn't mean that you can't work with other people. But what I've been looking at is how to bring all my messaging together around a particular personality type and a set of psychographics and attitudes, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I do think there's definitely an avenue for that. It's just not as easy. It's more abstract. And I don't know, I'm still trying to work out if it's the right thing or not.
Well, in niching, technically niching as far as only offering brand strategy, that is also a niche, because that's a horizontal. So there's a horizontal, which is your services, and there's a vertical, which is industry specific. And then we're talking about personality specific. So yeah, I mean that's a whole debate there. But a quick note on that: if you guys are worried about niching down, you can just brand for the personality of the person that you want to work with, and then individually target verticals with separate landing pages that talk, like if you wanted to do the beauty salon one, then talk to them, but on a separate landing page. And it's very hyper focused to that niche, but you can have like 10, you can have 10 different ones and then funnel people to each of those. You don't have to do that for your website. So if, for those of you like Nick, who have been putting off the idea of doing that, just have hidden landing pages per that you funnel people to. But that's like a whole marketing discussion. I just wanted to put a note in there. Courtney, did you want to come on and?
Yeah, you know what? It just dawned on me. You'll probably cover this in the pricing section, but you talked about like big dreams, big budgets and big dreams are two different things. So have you ever had someone who has a big dream that you really want to work with who doesn't have the budget? Like, do you have a way of working with them, or do you already have it broken down in a certain way that makes it manageable?
Yeah, fantastic question. And I just had an example of this happening, and I did share this in the other night. But I had someone come to me recently who wanted brand strategy. And great guy, he had really good dreams. He already had a social following of almost 100,000. And he said that he, though, wanted to pivot and wanted a different type of person than the one that is following him now. And he had different plans. So he had a really big dream. It was great. He doesn't know yet how he wanted to monetize it, but he knows generally that he needed to get his audience up so that he can validate some ideas. Totally was on board with everything he was saying. He did find out that, oh, you charge $10,000. He's like, just to let you know, I want to be totally upfront. For where I'm at currently, I only have $900 to $1,000. So in talking to him, we were able to figure out, I said, okay, so what is your plan moving forward? Because if you have this big goal, you would need to invest more to get there. He's like, I totally get it. I see the value in it. I only have this much money. So my plan was to use this money to make a little bit of money, enough to cover brand strategy, to then do what I need to do. And I said, great. Okay. So what I'm hearing is you're going to take this 900 to 1,000 to leverage your current audience, to tap into that, to make enough money to then hire me or whoever for brand strategy. He's like, yes. I said, okay, so here's our options then, if that's all you have. We can do consulting. I charge $250 an hour. I said, in his idea, which I agree with, was to create content and have brand deals, because he's already done a few, get a few brand deals under his belt and leverage his current audience to make enough for brand strategy. And I said, great idea. I usually don't do content, but I said, I'd be willing to consult with you for $250 an hour. I just can't guarantee that I'm going to be the best fit for that, because I don't do content, and that's not my specialty, or nor am that interested in it. So I said, how about I refer you to someone who is, that I know that would be better at that. And you get to that point where you can afford it, and then you come back to me if you're still interested. And he's like, I think that's a perfect idea. So I gave him those two options, whether consulting with me. So that's my option, really, is I can help get you to the point. I'll try to help get you to the point where you can actually afford it, or get you a plan to get there by consulting, or I'll refer them to someone else that can handle it, and then they'll pass them back to me later.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. And it was really cool, because he was it was awesome. He was honest about it. He's like, this is where I'm at, but I totally see the value in what you're doing, but how can you help me get there? And I'm like, okay, let's brainstorm. These are our options that we can do. I'm like, thank you that you were honest and, willing to talk about that.
Yeah, I know, that's awesome. Problem solving.
Yeah. Because then in the end, I know that if someone doesn't have the budget now, but they have a big dream and they're willing to work to get there, they'll eventually get there. They'll eventually get the money to be able to afford it. And they know they will too. And I want to work with people like that. I don't want to work with people that are just slinging out bills and, just because they have the money. I mean, big budgets are cool and all, but I'd rather work with someone that I'm like level with as far as mindset. Yeah. Great question. Any others? I'm making sure that nobody else posted. We got a few more minutes if you guys are. I don't want to overload you with too much info that's not pertinent to what you're working on right now. So if we're good. Any other parting questions? You guys are good? You feel confident for moving forward? I have a question for you guys. I see Nick's hand came up again. I have a question really quick before Nick, I bring you on. How do you guys feel about jumping into the roadmap talk next week? Do you feel confident with that? Because I don't want to bring in it too early before you're ready. We're good for that? Zuni's good. Lena's whatever. You're good. Yeah. Courtney, do you feel confident in that?
Yeah, like I haven't had a chance to do the strategy with my partner and I. So I might feel a little early, but I think it'd be fine.
Okay. And you guys can, if you take longer, it's fine doing your, I know that some people are going to be finishing up next week. If you even go into the third week, you know, that's fine too. You can always skip the calls and watch recordings. I understand that it's a lot to all of a sudden throw on you, and I didn't manage those expectations when you guys came in. Just totally blew my mind that you guys are going to have to spend a lot of time together to do these sessions. So you guys are champs doing that. Amy, you're running a strategy session with your partner this weekend. Great. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to maybe poll the group. It looks like we'll be okay for the roadmap next week, and we'll have 2 weeks on the roadmap. So I'll give you as much as I can next week, but then the week after we'll probably go over how to finalize. Because like I said, I break mine up into 3 weeks. And so I'll show you a lot of examples of what the different roadmaps look like, because they're not identical. And then how I go through that process. And then maybe the following week, we'll talk about how to button it up and how to do that. I just want to make sure you guys have enough time and that it doesn't feel like you're being hit over the head with information that you're unable to implement, because that's the worst. It's my arch nemesis, is overwhelm. Great. Okay. Any other last questions? You guys good? Any other comments? Nick, did you want to?
When you were back doing strategy with identity in mind and so on for clients in I think the health and wellness sectors and lifestyle sectors, was it?
Lifestyle.
Did you actually, shit, maybe this question doesn't even count for people with product and stuff. I haven't even thought about that. I was only going to ask, would you always, let's just talk about us now. Would you, on what level would you encourage everyone here to niche down into a vertical or not?
So my opinion, and this is only coming from my experience of niching to lifestyle. I know that's still broad. It's very broad, but it really helped me because it is a different process, a little bit different process than like tech companies and apps and software and all that. And so it helped me to just have an idea of lifestyle for myself. And then I was able to market, like I had said, I marketed to specific industries. Example, I reached out to a blog. She's not just a blogger. Like, she has an audience. This girl has an audience of fashion designers. So she writes a blog. She has a membership site. She has like 600 people in the group. And I was just researching strategic partners, because that's the thing that really helps you out, is connecting with someone who is serving the same audience that you want to go after in a different way. So recently, another example was I was on a podcast, super random, for a mortgage lender who has a podcast for mortgage brokers. So helping the mortgage brokers position themselves, and they do jumbo loans. So they're going for the really high end, mostly residential homes. It's like millions and millions. And so this is a mortgage lender that wants to be on par with all the banks and be seen as a viable option. So this guy has a podcast. He is doing it for mortgage brokers to position themselves higher end so that they can actually get those higher end clients so that they can get the jumbo loan so that they'll actually get the jumbo loans from this mortgage lender. Super smart. So he did that. Well, they contacted me because they wanted a branding voice in this and to help the mortgage brokers position themselves as a higher end consultant. And how do you do that? And so it was interesting because they weren't just asking me about brand strategy. They were asking me about my own strategy for my business, which was really a weird meta thing. But that's an example of how, like, if you can contribute to someone else's audience, that really, really helps. And so what I did earlier too, so that was one example, the mortgage lender one, being on his podcast. But then the other was the fashion, going back to the fashion person. She's not a designer. She was just one to help people. She had the audience. I connected with her and I said, what are your goals for your business? How can we help each other get to each of our goals? Because I serve a similar audience and I know my clients would need your help. And maybe there's something I can help with yours. So she ended up giving me, which maybe I should put this as a note to give to you guys. She ended up giving me a Google Doc of like, this is my goal. This is my social following. This is what I need. And seeing how we align. And so then I put, this is my goal. I'm trying to get more of this type of client. And I see you want content for your audience. Well, I want more of your type of audience as my client. So how about I write content for you? So we did a thing where I wrote a few guest blog posts for her. And then I said, hey, I would also be open to offering free consultations for some of your members. And so I gave a Calendly link and I did free consultations. It was like a 30-minute consultation. And I only opened up a couple hours a week for that. But then I got in a ton of potential leads and I helped. And there was a specific thing I was helping them with, that so they knew coming into the call. But that's a way of tapping into someone else's market. But they're different. Like, these are all under the lifestyle space. You know, I have home, I have, real estate, I have fashion, but it gave me a starting point of how to market to them or how to form strategic partnerships. Because to me, that's business rides on all of us being collaborative and helping each other in a community. And what better way to do that than forming those strategic partnerships in the industries that you want to work in. And I've heard that too. There's another call. I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but there's another one from my inner circle where it's all about that, where I had a guest come on and he talked about how they built their business and they do stuff for like cruise lines and award shows and all of the displays in the background that has to do with not only built displays, but video as well. So there's a certain term for it, but so it's like theatrics, but then with video, and they do millions in business. And he was talking about how you tap into someone else's audience that is serving the same audience that you would. It's just in a different way. And how do you contribute to that? Do you write guest blogs? Do you be on their podcast? Do you just give a free PDF that's like, hey, here's a list of things that you should be thinking about, anything like that. But yeah, so that's a very, very long-winded answer to Nick's original question. Did you want to add anything to that?
It's a good answer though. And like, it's funny, I'm glad that you said that about, because like lifestyle brand, it struck me when I saw that like lifestyle brands sounds like a niche, but doesn't necessarily operate like one. So I like that. And I've been trying to figure out if that's why I keep coming back to psychographics, because like I love, brew pub industry, fucking board sports, fashion, but it all tends to be very creative. Or expressive, and it also tends to have a social bent to it. So I've been trying to figure out if there is a way of niching that together in a package that isn't necessarily, yes, this is the hospitality industry or whatever.
Yeah, that's great. And then you can, and then from there, you'll have that view of the type of person, this creative social person, and then you can just, to yourself, it doesn't have to be public, but you can just go, okay, now I want breweries, and I want this other type of creative entrepreneur, and I want whatever. You can just, and then you can target your marketing to each of those things without having to change your overall branding, because that will stay the same. And then your different markets you market to are going to be different. That's totally fine.
Yeah. Well, you know, on that note, like I said it the other day, but so I'm about to launch a branding business called Lions and Tigers and Bears. And the way I have like refined the messaging down to its most minimal little form is that I help build brands with brains, heart, and courage for people on a mission. People on a mission, obviously, being the kind of psychographic niche that I'm trying to conjure up, right? Do you think that makes sense in terms of what we're talking about for customer facing specificity?
Yeah. And just remember that this is in a phase of the funnel, right? They're not going to, that's not going to be the first touch point they have with you. They're going to be attracted to you somehow, some way, whether that is your social platforms, if that's you networking, if it's a strategic partnership, and then they'll go there and just feel more validated. Like, oh yeah, this guy is who I thought he was. And so it's not like you have to do everything in the website. And that's, to me, that's enough to solidify like, oh yeah, I am that type of person and that's what I want. So yeah, good. Zuni asked, how and when did I know that I wanted to work with lifestyle brands? Was there an aha moment? You know, there was. That's a great question. I was taking an e-course a few years back, and it was just about branding and about branding myself when I was branding the consultancy to Marks and Maker. And it asked, who is your ideal client? And it had exercises in there and try to figure it out. And it was like, who did you like working with? What type of person do you really like working with? And what I did was I took the 3 clients that I loved working with, and I meshed it up and I made a persona out of it. And I thought, well, I just want to work with people that are like my friends, because I work with a lot of my friends. And one of them was a jewelry designer, and I loved working with her. And I literally made a persona that was mostly her and a couple of my other clients who were also really good friends. And I'm like, I just want to work with those types of people. And then I realized all of them were in the lifestyle space. And there was something about them that they were creative, and they had really good taste. I'm like, yes, I want to work with people with really good taste. And usually the people with really good taste are those that are in the lifestyle space. So they're either fashion designers, interior designers, architects, photographers, home builders. The home developer that I work with, their taste level is, oh my gosh. I walked into their open house the other day, they had an event, and I went in there and I'm like, all of my design, anything in me, like my design soul, it's just satisfied. Like just walking in there. And those are the type of clients that I want to work with that already have good taste. I don't have to convince them into it. And so it was like this aha moment, like, oh, I need to work with people that already have good taste. And those people are in the lifestyle space. So there's that. I know a lot of people too, they work with like health and wellness because they're really into that. They're into that in their personal lives. And to me, I'm into design in my personal life and with my friends. And so it just made sense for me to, do that. Do I do a discount for friends? Not typically anymore. I help friends a lot though. I'll like go out to lunch with them and just help them out. And they usually buy me lunch and I'm like, that's cool. That's fine. I wouldn't do an entire session for someone for free anymore because they know I charge $10,000. So I don't think my friends would feel good about it. But when I worked with the jewelry designer, we worked it out where I got every single piece of jewelry in every collection. And I knew it was a good swap. It was awesome. So I was fine with it. So I did stuff. I've done trades in the past. I've done a lot is like, can I just take you out to lunch and ask you a few questions? And I'm like, yeah, it was like free food. So I do that. But I haven't had a friend really approach me recently because I think they know, they're like, I can't afford you. So yeah, I'll do swaps though. And like Bonnie and we've done a lot of stuff with each other too. And so I'll hop on meetings all the time with people and help them out if they're my good friends. So. Because that's what you can do when you make enough, when you make enough with your clients, then you can actually just have fun and do other things with your friends. You don't have to charge them. Any other last questions? This was a really good talk, guys. Glad you guys were here. And Nick, man, what time is it there?
I don't know anymore. It's 5 to 6 p.m.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
I
You don't know
just-
anymore. We've totally
No,
thrown you
it's
off.
fine. It's fine. I had a 3-hour chat with Chloe
Oh, good.
beforehand. It was lovely. She's an absolute star. It's very smart.
Fantastic.
She's got good goals. It was awesome. But I hopped straight from that to this.
Good. Well, yeah. So speaking of goals, I hope all of you have really good goals. Now it's making you think. I'm glad we brought up the 3-year question because that'll help set the stage. Oh, it is.
Courtney, yeah!
Good. Yes.
I forgot it's your birthday.
Thank you. Yes, it is my birthday. I don't need any
Oh
song.
my God.
Although Zuni already sent me a beautiful happy birthday song this morning. That was very, very sweet. Thank you. Edwin came on camera for that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, I
want to see those microphones coming on.
No, we do not. It's like when you're at a restaurant and they awkwardly call you out and sing you happy birthday. It's cool. I'm good. I feel it already in my spirit. All of your singing. Thank you. I appreciate it. I do have to hop off, not because I don't want to hear the happy birthday song, because I have a 10 a.m. call. Thank you all. You guys are absolutely amazing. Nick, hitting it out of the park with all of your knowledge bombs coming in. I appreciate that. I will be putting up the recording as soon as I can. I will be on at 11:30 if you have any last minute questions. I'm doing multiple times. I'm trying to figure out what's the best time. If every time works out, that's fine. I'll do that too. You guys do not have to come to every Q&A. Just come to the ones you need. Or if you have a question, you also don't have to stay the whole time. You can come in late, anything. This is for you. So I want to make it as easy and as helpful as possible. So that, and then thank you guys for those of you who have been messaging me when something is confusing. I really appreciate it because I'm trying to clean things up and have it be less confusing. So don't feel bad for messaging me. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the birthday wishes, and I will see you. If I don't see you before then, I will see you on Tuesday's call on the roadmap, and I'll put the event shortly in the Facebook group. So thanks, guys. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye, guys.